This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. We are your home for all of your wrestling needs. We've got everything covered. Today, we're going to be breaking down what took place at Extreme Rules. I think it was a pretty good pay-per-view. As well, we're going to cover WWE, AEW. You hang around for news and notes. One wrestler signed a massive contract extension with this company, as well as some insight on what might be going on with CM Punk. There's beef with an interview done with Tony Khan. Got the lowdown on all of that, as well as a Cody Rhodes update. So stick around for all of that later on in the show. Doing it with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. He's as big of a wrestling fan as me, and he's got a great wrestling mind. He is the Doc, Jon Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
So much to get into. It was a great week, capped off by a great SmackDown that we're going to talk about. Boy, was it a fun week, and especially when you see the way in which storylines have evolved. Extreme Rules really delivered, and I'm just excited, man, to break it all down. It's fun to talk professional wrestling because we get to give our opinions, kind of play Booker for an hour a week, and really explore what the hell is going on with WWE, AEW, and Impact. It's a good time, brother. What are we starting with? Are we going to have to recap Extreme Rules, where they just definitely made the wrong choice with the women's championship?
Yes, we're gonna dive in there, because on Saturday night we had what I'm gonna say is a pretty good pay-per-view. I thought they did a really nice job with this pay-per-view, and there were some results that I think are gonna have some lasting impacts, and they're gonna kind of alter some storylines going forward. And one of those is that women's championship. We're gonna talk about that in one moment. But kicking the show off was the Balding Brutes. They defeated Imperium. They won by pinfall. Thought it was a really good match. Again, another hard-hitting match. Sheamus is involved. Gunther's involved. Thought it was really nice. The way it set up off of Friday Night SmackDown, this led into... On Friday Night SmackDown, it seemed as though Sheamus had won the Intercontinental Championship, comes back, gets his revenge on the pay-per-view. Now, that women's match that you were talking about, where you feel like they totally botched this, they totally screwed all this up. Ronda Rousey ends up defeating Liv Morgan via knockout to win the title. As Liv Morgan's going down, she's put in a submission hold and she's basically passing out. As she's going down, she starts to smile, almost like she's enjoying the pain. Do you think that Liv Morgan comes out of this match better because they redo her character, they re-injuvenate her character? There have been little snippets on WWE.com. There's been little snippets online where she seems as though she's walking more of a darker path. Do you think this helps kind of bring her... I don't know, man. I felt like her character was really going nowhere. They didn't really have too much to do. I got kind of tired of that cry baby eye makeup that she wore. I don't know. I felt like she was stale. Does this help get her rejuvenated and brought back to the forefront?
Absolutely. But you know what else helps get you to the forefront with a personality change? A belt. Could you imagine if, here's the perfect way to do it, okay? Maybe you could have it where Ronda maybe switches a little bit and tries to win over the crowd, but if not, you just have Liv Morgan take the belt and whack her over the head with it. A DQ where Ronda wins but doesn't get the belt. And then you just have, Liv Morgan at Extreme Rules, kendo sticks, punches, chairs, hell, even steal something from Edge. Grab a chair and have her smash it over the head of Ronda Rousey. That would have been cool. Great. You know what I mean? Ronda winning, kind of, to me, the way I viewed it, and not that I had any personal stakes in it in the matter, but I would say that for Liv's character, you made it so now it looked like, a transitional champion with no real value, no real signature maneuvers. I think you can do heel turns with characters or add more aggression, but keep the belt on. That would have added, to me, much more heat to whatever it is she's doing. Like, do you really believe, oh, wow, now Liv Morgan, this little scrawny girl, is tougher? No, maybe you could have had somebody come in and join a little mini two faction that you could have had. something more interesting could have been done than what they did, is to simply have Ronda win, and now Liv Morgan is a lady that likes pain. That did nothing for me.
Do you want to hear about how Ronda kind of pitched the end of this match? Because I thought it was really interesting, and it leads you into a little bit of insight as to where WWE is kind of at and where they're headed. So Ronda originally wanted Liv Morgan to powerbomb her into a set of thumbtacks. And within the melee of the thumbtacks, she wanted to fight her way out of the thumbtacks and slip Morgan into an armbar and basically face down her into the thumbtacks. She'd have her hand to protect her face from the thumbtacks actually going in, but she wanted to armbar her into the thumbtacks, and she would pass out into the thumbtacks, making them both look like they're absolute savages. WWE said, no, we don't use thumbtacks anymore. You can't have anything actually piercing the body. Again, they're no blood rule. So I feel like their ending would have been much more sweet than the ending we actually got. And I think they both would have came out looking much stronger with that ending. But it's what they went with. And look, I get what you're saying. You know how you can make Liv Morgan look better? Have her beat one of the toughest chicks in the world in Ronda Rousey. But again, I felt like these two just didn't have great chemistry. I thought they did a good enough job, but none of it ever really felt believable. Like, if I ever told you Liv Morgan met Ronda Rousey in a dark alley, Liv Morgan's walking out of that dark alley, you'd be like, you're crazy. Because we all know Ronda Rousey's going to fuck her up. Right. Which is kind of how it is. So, I don't know. I feel like they kind of were booked into a bit of a corner. This was the best way they could get out of it. We'll see what happens with Liv Morgan going forward, though. The dark snippets, it seems almost... I want to say Alexa Bliss-ish, when Alexa Bliss joined Bray Wyatt. Maybe there's a connection there with her and Bray Wyatt. I'm not 100% sure. We can speculate on some of the Bray Wyatt stuff a little bit later on when we get to the WWE part of the show. Now, Karrion Kross ends up defeating Drew McIntyre. Obviously, this feud is not done as what we've seen on SmackDown, so there's going to be another chapter to this story. Bianca Belair defeats Bayley to retain her title. We've got Finn Balor defeating Edge in an I Quit match. What did you make about Dom hitting Rey? This is the first time Dominic Mysterio hit his dad, like actually struck him. Now, on Monday Night Raw, you've seen it a little bit more, but this is the first time Dominic Mysterio actually struck Rey. And they also utilized Beth Phoenix in this match. And I think she was kind of the linchpin for how this match unfolded. What did you think about them utilizing both of these wrestlers?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought for the match, the way it went, everybody kind of had a feeling that was the way it was going to go with Finn Balor. In regards to how would you get Edge to tap, obviously you're going to involve someone in the family. We talked about it. We speculated a little bit how you could, potentially have Finn Balor win this match because he probably needed it more than Edge did. So it was done perfectly. I think it's great that they're trying now at the same time to establish the Judgment Day in this kind of way. And while it's not my personal taste like those characters, I want to see more of Rhea Ripley than I do Dominic at this point. But this is their way of elevating Dominic, and that's the goal at this point. For me, I'm more, kind of feeling like Damian Priest took a step back being in the Judgment Day. Like his character was really, really a year ago, probably way more over than it is now. But he's still working his way as a heel. I think the involvement of Finn Balor has kind of taken the shine away from Damian Priest a little bit. He kind of seems like the assistant, the muscle to the leadership of Finn Balor. So for me, I'm okay with Finn Balor being the leader. He needed this. It was a good match. And if you were going to go down this road, this was the best way to get Edge to say I quit. But it just went on a little too long. The ending sequence could have been tighter.
Yeah, I thought it was a good usage of emotion. I thought bringing Beth Phoenix in, giving her a concerto, I thought that really kind of helped elevate parts of this. I thought Dom finally hitting Rey. If you're at a pay-per-view, these are moments that you're kind of looking for. These are high spots that you're looking for in the pay-per-view. Stuff that you're going to end up believing, and you're going to end up turning to your friend and being like, oh my God, I didn't believe Dom would actually hit his dad. He actually hit his dad. So I thought those were really interesting moments. I thought they were really good moments. I thought they were high spots for this match. Overall, I thought it was a really good match, and I thought their usage and their timing, where they were placed, was done really, really well. I think Beth getting hit with a concerto, I think you can bring back Edge and have him be a little bit darker, a little bit more sadistic. The only problem is this will now be like the 6th time in 2 months that you've brought Edge back as a little bit of a more twisted character. At some point, I'm kind of tired of seeing Edge re-debut as something else. Do you know what I'm saying? It's getting a little bit old. So we'll see what happens with that. But I thought this was well done. I think now this feud can kind of be done, at least for a while. Finn Balor can go on to something else. Edge can stay away. I think we can move in different directions and really try to help build Dominic and try to get that faction a little bit more over. Now, Matt Riddle defeats Seth Rollins via submission in a fight pit. I'm not sure about you. I thought this was a really good match. I really enjoyed this match. But I felt like the ending kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I was hunkered down on the couch and I looked down at my phone for a real quick second because I think we might have been messaging. I'm not 100% sure. And then next thing you know, you've got Seth Rollins tapping out. And I was like, wait, what? How did he just tap out of that? Like, he was just bludgeoning Riddle and Riddle got him in a quick submission move and instantly he taps out. To me, I felt like the ending was really, really quick. It felt like this show went maybe a little bit too long and they knew what they had to do for what we're going to talk about next. And somebody called into the referee and was like, we got to go now. End it now. End it now. And next thing you know, Seth Rollins was tapping out.
That's exactly how I felt. And for me, my note was, it just felt like the match was there to be a main event to get to Bray Wyatt. It was weird because it was like Riddle celebrates, he's walking up the ramp and then done. It's like, okay. It was kind of weird in that they maybe could have transitioned to it just a little bit smoother to get to the reveal. But I kind of, in a way, felt like the placement of the reveal. I know you want to build up to that crescendo. I might have did it at the beginning of the show. Let people talk for the entire 3 hours and then maybe have one more interlude because it was cool, but it just kind of felt like when it's the end of the night, you knew it was coming. So it was like, okay, here we are. So as soon as the lights go dark, you knew what was happening. And it was quick. It was a little bit weird in that he doesn't come out to the ring. I would have did it in the beginning. I mean, kind of like how AEW did it with CM Punk. Everyone knows what's happening. Just darken the lights. He comes out. And then you could have speculated a little bit back and forth throughout the show. What the hell was that? What was that? What does that mean for Bray Wyatt? Da-da-da-da. And then maybe you have him do another segment at Extreme Rules. I just felt like it could have been handled better. It was a little bit wonky, a little bit weird. But bottom line, I thought at least we got the payoff for the White Rabbit in a way that now puts a significant jolt into WWE. You got a character that everybody wants to see in this version with top leadership. So it was exciting. It was great. It made Extreme Rules really awesome. I just felt like it wasn't the best use of a debut that you knew was going to be awesome. I would have given it more time. I mean, you didn't have to rush it. You could have actually, it felt like it was at the expense of two performers that kicked ass. The match with Riddle, I was okay with. I just didn't like the structure. It was good. I would have actually liked to have seen a traditional match, just a wrestling match. These guys are just, their story themselves told itself, and these guys were brutal and wanted to hurt each other. The structure, I felt like, limited the match in a way in regards to the stipulation. Daniel Cormier is not natural in what he's doing. I would have maybe had him in a different role. So I would have just had them highlight their own stuff at the end, and then Bray Wyatt gets his own segment. But all in all, B+, A- pay-per-view. You're right. It was really entertaining and really sparked off a lot about what we're going to talk about this week.
Yeah, I want to kind of go back to what you said about Daniel Cormier, because I kind of felt like he was the square peg in the round hole. He did not seem to fit, and I felt like they could have used his relationship with Matt Riddle a little bit more. Maybe put Seth Rollins a little bit more off his game. I know he's the referee, but he has no relation. And they built that up going into that match. Like as they're setting this match up, they built that part up where Seth Rollins has no connection to Daniel Cormier. But Matt Riddle has faced him twice. I think it was in high school. And they kind of added that in. It was like another layer to this story, but it never really meant anything. So basically you gave me word soup at the beginning of the story, and it didn't mean anything. So I don't know. I felt like that was a really good match. And more to your point, you guys could have had a really great, just pure wrestling match. We didn't need Extreme Rules here. You could have had just a really good wrestling match, and we could have been just fine with it. Instead, you gave us this elaborate cage, which was cool, and there were a couple spots that were neat with it. But overall, it just felt like it didn't fit. And you're right. It felt like it was the land bridge to get from the Finn Balor match to what ended up coming with Bray Wyatt. And then we had the Bray Wyatt reveal, and similar to what you said, the way I took this, we had been building for this and building for it, and it had felt like it could only be Bray Wyatt. If it wasn't Bray Wyatt, that place was going to burn down. So you get Bray Wyatt, and I understand that it has to be a production for television, but I also understand that you have to produce it for the people in the audience. For me, it felt grand, but it didn't feel like enough. It felt like it was really, really good, but it felt like they left some stuff on the table. And I don't know any other way to really explain it. And I don't know if it was because of the build that we had, the interest that we had, the intrigue that we had for months and months and months. The fact that we've wanted Bray Wyatt to come back. We never understood why he got released in the first place almost a year and a half ago. I don't know if it was all of these things, but to me, I thought it was well done. I thought it was really good, especially when they showed the whole thing over again on Monday night, and I got to rewatch it without all of those added expectations. I was like, this was done really, really well. But it felt like it was a little bit lacking. It felt like there was just a little bit more that we could have got. I don't know if it was him maybe popping up through the middle of the ring. I don't know if it was just kind of the way he entered, where he walked through the door. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought it was well done. I thought it was classy. I just felt like I wanted something a little bit more. And again, maybe that's just me. I'm not 100% sure. If you guys wanted a little bit more, let us know at Detroit Podcast. If you're taking the pay-per-view and you love Bray Wyatt's reveal, but it just didn't feel like enough, let us know. Or maybe I'm crazy. Let me know if I'm crazy at AdamRSTROZ. Overall, thought it was a really good pay-per-view. Overall, what do you think of this pay-per-view?
Yeah, great pay-per-view. I thought it in regards to setting forth the pathway for what we're going to get now heading towards Survivor Series, it did a good job, and the wrestling was great. And the only maybe drawback was it just felt like a lot. Like it was like match after match after match, aggression. I would have just maybe had one or two just traditional matches. You just kind of need a little bit of a place setter, but it was just like ladder match, this match, strap match. It's great to have a themed pay-per-view, but you just need a little bit of levity where just give me a lock-up, headlock kind of moves and give me a traditional match. Just one, because boy, was it was very stimulating. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And sometimes you're right. You break it up a little bit with, in this case, it'd be something out of the norm, right? You wouldn't have this match that is so intense. You just get like a regular match. It makes that next match that follows that much better because you hadn't seen it in roughly 15, 20 minutes. What
a perfect candidate would have been Theory versus Gargano. It would have been a perfect 12 minutes, give us a wrestling match, boom, 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 and have everything that happened on Raw take place on the pay-per-view. How do you cut Johnny Gargano from the pay-per-view?
Yep, no, you're absolutely right. That would have been perfect because both those guys can wrestle. Both those guys can tell a story. If you want to make it a little bit extreme, have him use his briefcase. I don't know. Just an idea. And you don't even need to make that, like, that doesn't even necessarily make it extreme because foreign objects are used in wrestling matches all the time. So, but you're right. I think that would kind of bring it down a little bit to bring you back up. And that's kind of what we talk about when we're talking about pacing a card. It's these ebbs and flows with the matches, right? You don't want to, you want a crescendo at the right point because you don't want to leave the crowd completely flat. There are sometimes matches go on and they actually steal the show, and the next match that has to follow, it is dead. It is like crickets in there, and it's hard. It's hard to perform in that. And it kind of leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth of the viewer, the people in the stadium, and as well as the wrestlers. So there's a way to pace it out and make it feel that much more special. Now, in calling the card, I ended up picking up the Ronda Rousey selection. You ended up taking Liv Morgan. I took Ronda Rousey. That put me over the top. I now lead by 6, 13-7 in calling the card. But like you said, everything we got on Saturday left us on the hook for what we were going to get this week from WWE. And I think what we got this week from WWE was really, really good. I don't understand why they call them season premieres because WWE doesn't do seasons. Maybe in the future they will. And I think in the future that'd probably be really good. It'd be good for the wrestler's health. But right now, they don't do seasons. But this was the season premiere. We're going to go with WWE logic here. I thought Raw season premiere was really, really good. What did you think of Monday Night Raw overall, just in general?
I thought it was great. I thought that Riddle coming out and interrupting the bloodline was sweet. Sami Zayn's promo to open it was really good. He definitely, again, continues to shine. And you got to remember, guys, Sami Zayn opens Monday Night Raw, in essence, with a great promo and really hypes up everything. And it kind of led to a great, really 3 hours of wrestling, highlighted by some surprises, which I thought was not going to happen. So that was always great, because I thought for a brief moment that AJ Styles was going to join the Judgment Day. And I was like, oh, no, it's a surprise. I could have understood it, obviously, in the story. But, boy, the returns that we got was pretty awesome. It was surprising, and it was cool, because that's what a true surprise is. No word, no rumors, and you have a guy in AJ Styles making good with his boys, and that was awesome.
Yeah, and to your point, we had no knowledge that this was going to happen. Last time we looked, last thing we knew, the Good Brothers, who ended up showing up to back up AJ Styles, were staying with Impact for a little bit longer, and we're going back to New Japan. Carl Anderson owns an IWGP title belt currently. He's an IWGP champion currently. So nothing in the water led you to believe that they were coming back to WWE. But the moment that AJ Styles leaned in for a hug with Finn Balor and was like, am I not my brother's keeper? I looked at Alyssa and I was like, the Good Brothers are showing up. Bang, hit their music, and we have the reuniting of the OC. How awesome was it to see the Good Brothers back? And you already mentioned it was a fantastic surprise. Nobody knew. You and I are usually pretty up on these things. It's probably the worst part of what we do, because we have to be so plugged into so many different things. It takes the surprise factor away. And that's the one thing I love about wrestling, is I love being shocked. I love being awed. We tend to be so plugged into so much stuff that when things happen, we're just kind of like, oh, okay. Whatever. We kind of knew that was coming. We forecasted that. That's what it is. This, we had no clue. It was like taking a sheet pan to the side of the head. Had no idea it was coming, and it was an awesome surprise. What did you think about it? How great was it?
Absolutely perfect. I thought it was something that was spectacular and something that you really think could infuse AJ Styles. But again, the one thing that we all want to see is, could Finn Balor join to really reunite the group? That would make everybody pop. But I think it's a great foil for Finn Balor to go up against now his friend, his former Bullet Club member, and it was great to see Gallows and Anderson. I think it's good, because you're kind of getting a sense that those are getting another opportunity. Will get an opportunity to get right. And I just think that AJ Styles probably was like, okay, if we're seeing some people come back and we're opening up the coffers, you knew he went to bat for his boys. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that, especially with the way in which it went down with the Good Brothers. You just feel like give them the spotlight a little bit and let the story develop, and let's see where it goes. Let them actually fall on the sword if they do not actually do the right thing. But then, cuz I thought I wanted to get your sense. What did you make of the main event celebration with DX? To be honest, maybe because Jesse James said the word de-geriatric. Boy, these guys looked old. I don't think they needed ring time. I think they could have just stuck with the backstage stuff. That was funny with the obviously using the cocks and the play on words to have the actual rubber ducks there. That was great. It was all good. I thought the opportunity to go to the ring might have taken away from superstars that need that time, and that's maybe where you might have just had it to where they get to the ramp, they have a quick thing, and they clap and keep it moving. I don't think I needed to see it. We've seen them so much. I don't need a 25-year celebration of DX, dude. They've hogged up so much air, but it did provide for the line of the night. I think when I think it was Corey Graves said, "Oh, the other guy's doing stuff now with office supplies." That was good. It was a little inside. They let the crowd say his name, so it was good to see. But I just felt like you could have had a great wrestling match instead. That would have been better for Raw.
Yeah, look, they got 8-10 minutes at the very end of the show. And you're right. They look old. They all look. Here's the thing. Triple H still looks great.
Yep.
Triple H still looks great. Damn near died of a heart condition. Still looks great. Shawn Michaels started looking old about 10 years ago.
Right.
And he's aging better, but he still looks old. X-Pac looks like he still belongs in a rock and roll band.
Yep.
But they're on their last leg. And Road Dogg has aged probably the most poorly out of all those guys. But I don't think they needed the airtime. They didn't do anything special. There was no need for it. Like, cool, come out and thank the crowd. We could have had backstage skits all night long, and we could have did like a collage of some of their greatest moments.
Yes.
We didn't need that. You didn't have to do that. It didn't help set anybody else up, didn't help get anybody else over. I think the one thing it did do, and I think you're going to start to see this a little bit more with both Raw and SmackDown, because we've seen it on Monday Night Raw, and we've seen it on SmackDown this week. You're going to start to see more of a presence with Triple H. Triple H is going to become more of an on-air character. Everybody now knows that he's basically the head man in charge. You're now going to start to see him lean into that a little bit more. You're going to start to see him have more interactions with wrestlers. So instead of him being the guy in the background, he will now be more foreground. And I think that is this was kind of a way to kind of push that agenda forward a little bit. But more to your point, I don't think it was necessary. Don't think it was needed. Don't think it got anybody over. I don't even think they got themselves over. They were already over, so they didn't have to do anything. Didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I wanted to get your thoughts on Brock Lesnar's appearance. Now, again, this was another surprise. We didn't think Brock Lesnar was showing up. We thought that there might be something going on with Brock Lesnar, especially with Daniel Cormier a couple nights earlier in the Fight Pit match. But Brock Lesnar shows up. That was a surprise. Brock Lesnar shows up, interrupts a Bobby Lashley promo. And I'll be honest with you, I like seeing Brock Lesnar because, again, I think Brock Lesnar has the best schedule for a wrestler. Guy, I don't want to say he wrestles when he wants, but he's not constantly in your face. And when he's in a storyline, it's like every other week you get to see him. So whenever he shows up, it's always a big deal. Him interrupting Bobby Lashley didn't make any sense to me. I thought Bobby Lashley was doing a good job as the United States champion. I thought Bobby Lashley holding that belt was... I thought they finally figured out how to make Bobby Lashley a star. The crowd is into Bobby Lashley. Brock Lesnar showed up. Next thing you know, he smacks Bobby Lashley in the face with the microphone, and then it's like 2 F5s, and he's just suplexing him around and basically leaves Bobby Lashley broken in the middle of the ring. And as this is happening, everybody wants to cheer Brock Lesnar, but people also want to cheer Bobby Lashley, and I felt like the crowd was kind of like, who do we cheer for here? What is going on? I didn't feel like this was necessary, and I don't think I want to see another Brock Lesnar-Bobby Lashley match. I do understand that Saudi Arabia is around the corner, and Brock Lesnar wants that Saudi Arabia money. But do we have to see Brock Lesnar-Bobby Lashley again?
See, here's the thing. You have to only if, which maybe puts the question out there, is it time now for Brock Lesnar to start putting people over? You can elevate Bobby Lashley into the stratosphere by putting him over, by having, okay, now I'm pissed, you cost me the title, because obviously he went on and Seth Rollins is now the new United States champion, which is something that I felt like we both did, saying that, okay, look, Seth Rollins is now needing a title kind of to take the next step forward in the push that he's getting. But I could, again, you could argue the same thing with Bobby Lashley. You could have had him still win and retain, but at the same time now be put on notice that Brock Lesnar is on the trail. I thought that the big point, the big takeaway in my notes, and what I took away from it is you just squashed Bobby Lashley. You just eliminated his push. You just right then and there eliminated his push. But it can come back if Bobby Lashley is going to go over. But you never know. I just, again, like you said, it was nice. It was a good surprise. It was fun. But I don't think we wanted the target of the assault to be Bobby Lashley.
Right. It didn't have to be at the expense of Bobby Lashley. To me, that was the part that really made little to no sense and kind of frustrated me about the whole segment. Now, I get what you did, where you set it up to where Seth Rollins now capitalized. Seth Rollins did a great job of leaning into the mental gymnastics, where we all know Bobby Lashley was a former Marine, and basically United States champion means a lot to him. He's hurt. Is that what you do for your country? Is that how you defend that belt? Did all of that, all the mental gymnastics, and gets Bobby Lashley back in the ring for Seth Rollins to win. Should Seth Rollins have won the U.S. Championship? Does this help? I don't think Seth Rollins is a wrestler who necessarily needs to be elevated with a belt. I think Seth Rollins was super over. I think Seth Rollins' character at some point needs to evolve, and I think that would help push him higher. Should he have won the United States Championship? Should it, again, came at the expense of Bobby Lashley? Because I feel like this whole segment broke down Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, it could have been done better, but if you go down this road, I'm okay to see it because you think that it'll be a wrestling champion. So to see more of Seth Rollins is not a bad thing. Now it's going to just build a little intrigue to see how you're going to move forward with Bobby Lashley because you owe him one because you just put a balloon in his push, which you really didn't need to do because the dude was massive. And it's weird because why is it that Brock Lesnar has to come back at the expense of Bobby Lashley? He's already earned it to be over. He doesn't really need a win over Brock Lesnar. You know, it's kind of like one of those things where you let the organic nature of just the fact that Bobby Lashley's been there, he's worked hard, he's had good matches, and the people want him over. Maybe this is a way for, you know, the tried and true formula of, hey, the good guy gets his comeuppance, he gets taken advantage of by the heel. But at the same time, Brock Lesnar, people like to see him. So, you know, I'm curious to see how it plays out. Seth Rollins is great, man. He's just doing everything great. Everything that he's done has turned to gold. He's reliable, great wrestler, and I thought he played it up well, like taking advantage of a downed. It's weird too because we would like Seth Rollins to win on his own merits, but as a typical heel, they got to take advantage of certain situations in order to get ahead, which is always fabulous. But I just want to see how it plays out. Hopefully, at the very least, they can do Bobby Lashley a solid and let him get the 1-2-3 on Brock Lesnar in a big match.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they do that and kind of how that plays out. We'll see what happens in Riyadh because that's where this is going, I feel. Now, continuing to be the best part of WWE, you talked about it to open our WWE segment. Sami Zayn's inclusion into the bloodline has been absolutely fantastic, and the rubbing of Jey Uso the wrong way has been incredibly great. We talked about how they opened up Monday Night Raw. They help open up SmackDown this week. What did you think about this week with the two being on the same page compared to last week where they were a little bit off and Jay not getting any credit for helping Sami Zayn get a win? In the match, Sami Zayn's basically rolled up. Jey Uso comes in and I don't remember who he was wrestling. Ends up kicking him in the chest and Sami Zayn rolls him over for the 1-2-3. Sami Zayn thinks he's did it all by himself. Solo Sikoa says, I didn't see you get involved, which I don't know how he didn't see him get involved. But Solo Sikoa says, I didn't see you get involved. Sami did that all by himself. And this just driving Jey Uso more and more insane. What do you think about this? It's just like every week we get a new layer added to this story. And it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. I think it's great. Whenever this comes on, everything I'm doing, I stop and I watch because Sami Zayn has been absolutely brilliant in this role. Jey Uso has played his part so well. On top of that, Roman Reigns, him leaning into Roman Reigns and Roman Reigns leaning into him has been great. What did you make about this? This just like, again, just another layer added to this story. I just want to keep flipping the page on this story because it's so damn good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. Sami Zayn, who's going to be the one that gets pissed off at Sami, or what can Sami do next? It's an amazing testament to every week getting a couple opportunities to go out there and handle business. And online, too, you get to see a little bit of Roman Reigns cracking a little bit with all the hijinks and hilarity that happens with Sami Zayn. It's going to be interesting to see now where it plays out. What's the payoff going to be? But Sami Zayn, just more of them. And I think, too, the potential infusion of Paul Heyman in the mix here of really building out this character with Sami Zayn, I think you can see it, too. More confidence. Just let it go. Let it rip. And this is what happens when you let a true character get his business handled.
Yeah, it's been absolutely great. Hopefully it continues because, like I said, he's the highlight of any show that he's on right now. Now, speaking of highlights, if you watch SmackDown, you basically tuned in for the final 10 minutes of the show. You wanted to see Bray Wyatt's return. And Bray Wyatt showed up and closed out SmackDown. I want to know what you thought about it because what we got was a little bit rambly of a promo, but it was an emotional Bray Wyatt. This was like no Bray Wyatt you have ever seen ever before. This was a vulnerable Bray Wyatt. This was Bray Wyatt I do believe talking to you from his heart. I don't think this was Bray Wyatt pretending to be a character that is part of Bray Wyatt. I believe this was Bray Wyatt actually talking to you, speaking heart to heart with the entire WWE universe, kind of pouring it out there, laying it out there, but at the same time, it getting worked into a storyline. I thought this was absolutely fantastic, and the way they closed it left me, again, wanting more, which is a good thing. I thought the quick fade to black, I was kind of like, oh, damn, that's all we're going to get? I thought it was really, really well done. I like the rambliness of Bray Wyatt. I like how the masked figure came up, and it was a lot of, like, it's a little bit hard to understand what the masked figure says. It sounds a little garbled, but overall, I like the masked figure's inclusion. To me, at this point, it seems almost like Bray Wyatt's personality is so chaotic and so split and so fractured that he's got multiple personalities, and everybody that you're getting and everybody that you're seeing is just some incarnation of one of his personalities. And I think that makes for a really interesting, if not creepy, character. What did you make about the way that they closed out SmackDown with Bray Wyatt?
Yeah, Wyndham Rotunda's weird. It came out there, it was all rambling. You guys saved me, but it was sad because you knew that he was talking about the potential deaths of wrestlers that have passed away. So you could get a sense that, okay, it was hard for him. But I just didn't need that. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of knew him being away. And for me, let's start with this. I'm not really a fan of the new music. I like the old because...
Oh, you didn't like it?
No, I know it's popular. It's not terrible. It's just the way in which, if you're going to have him come down with the light, the old entrance music plays perfectly with the beat, with kind of the pacing of somebody walking slow. This is like, let's get to the ring like Ultimate Warrior style. It's like really boom, metal music and really in your face. I get it, and it's aggressive. I would have liked just the kind of the steady beat that you had with Bray Wyatt's old music. Now that's just a personal preference. It's no big deal. It's going to work. For me, it was real. It was good. It's just, for me, the way in which I kind of looked at it when we were preparing for the show, it's just a lot of layers for Bray Wyatt right now. That just, it's kind of like he's got 15 rings on him. Who are these characters? What's the story? What's the pain? Who's the reveal? Is it gonna be Bray? Is it gonna be Bray Wyatt? Is it gonna be the Fiend? What version is it gonna be? The Wyatt family. It just feels like a bunch of different loose strings that got to be tied up, and they probably will be. But right now, my God, now you add this layer of realism to what he was saying, and the ending was cool with the voice that they did, and kind of like, oh, somebody's coming out now to potentially have a say and a word with Bray Wyatt about his future. So it was well done, but it feels like another opened segment of this character. It's just a lot, and I kind of need some, like, it's kind of like, okay, you've set the scene of what this is gonna be, but now it's time to move forward. Let's get to some matches. Because of the White Rabbit inclusion, let's get to some conclusive movement here instead of all the setup here. A lot of setup. Way too much setup for my liking.
Yeah, at this point, you don't...
Paid off already.
Yeah, you don't know why Bray Wyatt's back. You don't know who he's facing. You don't have any direction with his character. And usually at this point, and I think maybe that's what I was missing with his reveal. Have him come up in the ring, have him attack somebody, have him show up behind somebody. Like you got that with Dexter Lumis. Dexter Lumis showed up, and you were a little unsure: is he going after AJ Styles? Is he going after The Miz? In the end, you found out he was going after The Miz. It gave you had a little bit of direction. Whether it was a 2-lane highway and you weren't sure which lane to take, you had a 2-lane highway with Dexter Lumis. Right now with Bray Wyatt, you don't know what's going on. And you're right, he is so multifaceted. It's almost like a choose your adventure book where you've got 9 adventures going on at the same time. And it's like, okay, can we just kind of pick one and can we go that direction? Because I'd love to kind of figure that out a little bit. It's just a little bit all over the place. That being said, I do find him to be the most interesting person in wrestling. Like real life, I would love to sit down and interview that guy because I feel like he is all over the place. Like his mind just operates at a different speed and at a different frequency than everybody else's. He is so creative. It's unreal. All right. I thought WWE was fantastic this week. You got some stuff for us for Impact. What's going on with Impact?
A major return. Now, this was interesting in that over the past couple years, Bully Ray has kind of said through the SiriusXM media platform that he's on, Busted Open, that he could potentially entertain a return only if the story was right. So he said that, and it paid off. Bully Ray has appeared at Impact, and he talked to Josh Alexander, kind of talking about wanting to do things right and set the stage, kind of wanting to befriend somebody. And it was a great story. I think it is truly an interesting story, but it just feels, it sucks because it's told to the way in which Impact's setup is, it just sounds like he's talking to himself in a hollow bingo hall because there's maybe 50 people in the entire arena. So it was cool to see. He's 51 years old, and you could see it's a masterclass of a promo, and he's taking advantage of his ability to engage you in this story. And you have, Impact wondering, can we trust this guy? Can we trust this individual who's saying he wants to make things right and not be the guy that burned Sting, burned Hogan, burned everybody that he's ever done? And now you're going to, I think you're going to potentially set the stage for what a heel does, which is bring you in, get that trust, and then turn. So it's going to be great. I think it's going to have an opportunity now to infuse a little bit of intrigue now to see Tommy Dreamer and Bully Ray work together. And you just have a bunch of knowledge, and it just makes sense. How do you not take advantage of Bully Ray if you're Tommy Dreamer and you're in the backstage crew there and you realize, okay, we got this guy with a lot of knowledge and he's got a big platform. Let's use him a little bit, even if it's just 1 or 2 matches a year, kind of get the Sting program. He's only 51. If you can wrestle 5 matches a year and be a talking figurehead and someone that draws attention, you could see Bully Ray potentially getting his final run in AEW.
Yeah, you could. And look, forever and a day, he says, as long as the story's right. He's like, I'm not coming in to just do a one-off. There's got to be a story here. And he at this point, he is one of those wrestlers who at this point in his career, he's looking to help get that next guy over, to work closely with whoever that next guy is, impart some wisdom and help get them over. I think Bully Ray he's a rare gem in the industry. A lot of guys still, even when they retire, their focus is primarily on how they get themselves over. Bully Ray's a guy who works for the betterment of the match, betterment of the story. And if I can give you some wisdom, as long as you're receptive to it and you take it, I'll give you everything you need. And he's absolutely fantastic about it. That is awesome. Makes Impact look incredibly interesting. Check Impact out. Again, they do a lot of really good stuff. Speaking of some good stuff, what did you think of the Hangman Page promo on Jon Moxley this week? I thought Hangman was going to knock himself out with the way he was punching himself. A couple times you've seen him check his own head. As he got so worked up, he started just punching himself in the head, saying, I am a man. And as he was leaving the ring, he kept kind of touching it. I think he hit himself a little too hard in the head in his promo on Wednesday night. What did you make of all of it? And where's your intrigue now for Hangman Page, Jon Moxley?
Absolutely. It was very impassioned. And Adam Hangman Page has just the innate ability to captivate an audience with his promos. And you realize that potentially when the other boys see what Jon Moxley is doing, they have to raise their game. And I just thought that Adam Hangman Page tried to take it to a level where he could be on that same kind of crazy path as Moxley. So that was my sense. And it's good because if you have 2 crazy dudes, what does that mean? Great matches. And I just can't wait for it. I don't need all the build-up. I know it's going to be great. I think that Adam Hangman Page has put himself in prime positions to be taken seriously. And let's go. Let's get after it.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. My one critique of this whole thing, Hangman Page and Jon Moxley seems like it's a pay-per-view type match. And I do love that we get these on free TV. I think it's fantastic. But I feel like the build has been quick. This is one of those ones where I almost wish we maybe had another week or two to really add to this, to really build this up, because it really feels like Moxley came out, cut a promo 1 week. Next week, Hangman came out, cut a promo. And now we're going to go fight on Tuesday night. It's like, all right, well, that was quick. And look, I don't believe that Hangman's walking away with a title. So it pulls a little bit. We've talked about this before. Like, if you have a competitor who is incredibly believable, it makes the match that much better. So we'll see how they put this match together. We'll see if they get the time that they need. Again, going to be on a Dynamite, going to be on a Tuesday. I would love for these guys to have a full 30, 45 minutes and really get me sucked in, where I think Heyman hits a move and Moxley's down and it's 1, 2, almost 3, he kicks out. You like get me to buy in. If you can get me to buy in the match, then you've done your job. So we'll see what happens. Again, I don't think Hangman's winning the title here. I think Moxley retains, but we'll see how it plays out. Again, though, a great promo by Hangman. Some of his best work, I think, to date. Was it a good call to have Daniel Garcia turn full-blown heel and cost Bryan Danielson his match against Chris Jericho? Bryan Danielson, Chris Jericho, fighting for the ROH Championship was a really, really good match. These guys get in and they tear it down all the time. Daniel Garcia ends up showing up just as Chris Jericho is about to, or just as you've got was it Daddy Mac about to strike Bryan Danielson with a belt. Next thing you know, Daniel Garcia rips the belt away and strikes Bryan Danielson himself, lays him out. Chris Jericho gets the pin. Chris Jericho can say he didn't cheat because he wasn't the one who hit Bryan Danielson, but Daniel Garcia goes heel, supports Chris Jericho, and is now again a wrestling entertainer. What did you think about this?
I thought it was great. I thought that's the way you build it, where I thought he was going to choose, because of the way they built it up, I thought he was going to choose to be a professional wrestler and go with Danielson. I truly thought that, because he was getting over, the crowd loved it, and this is another way that masterful heel work where you think one thing and it goes completely the other way. Now he's going to have an opportunity to take the next step forward, and boy, you now know that there's a tremendous amount of respect that Chris Jericho has for Daniel Garcia to put him in this position to take the next step, and he looks good with the title on his shoulder. So it's going to be great to see, and I think it probably for now is the right choice.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was kind of shocked by this, and again, we love swerves in wrestling. This was a bit of a swerve for me, so we'll see kind of where they go with it. It was really, really good. It was interesting. Again, was not prepared for it. Now on Rampage, we got a bit of a debut. The Kingdom shows up. Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, along with Maria Kanellis-Bennett. They show up at the end of Rampage. Again, these are former Ring of Honor champions that showed up and basically call out FTR. What did you make about this? And do you think these guys work in AEW? I think WWE was going after them as well. WWE wanted to bring them back in the fold. Part of the old faction that they were part of, the Honor No More faction, sounds like, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit in our news and notes, sounds like they may be going to WWE. What did you make about the Kingdom showing up, and will they work in AEW?
I think it did. I mean, Maria, I kind of wish she was in AEW like 2 years ago. She just looks a little bit old, kind of not as relevant is the best way to do it. This was a perfect scenario. You could have used vignettes to kind of introduce the crowd to who these people were. Well, I know who they are. It's interesting. I do think they belong. I'm curious to see now where it goes, but it just kind of has a feel of like a temporary call-up. I don't know if they're going to be fixtures, but hey, you get your opportunity. Let's see where it goes, and I think it makes it for a fun opportunity to have new rivals. And I think that was good in that they kind of, with Maria's speech, kind of established themselves saying, hey, no, you have not beaten us, and now we're here to handle business.
Yeah, the way I think you could have did this better, and this almost seems, again, like a rush signing. There are parts of AEW that take forever to get to where you're going. Then there are other parts where it just feels like they hit the fast forward button. Again, I feel like you could have did some vignettes a couple weeks ago, kind of getting you interested, just random things that you have no idea who it is. And they could have showed up at the end of Rampage, and you could have put the pieces together and be like, that's cool, that makes sense. Instead, they came out, and Maria was like, if you don't know who we are, we're the Kingdom. And it was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like, I don't know. I always find it weird when wrestlers have to introduce themselves. You should kind of know. I don't know. It's what it is. I thought it was okay. I think they'll work in AEW. I think Matt Taven is absolutely great. If Mike Bennett, and he looks like he's in a much better place than when he was at WWE. If Mike Bennett can stay on the straight and narrow, and look, Maria Kanellis is absolutely great. She is a good piece for women's wrestling, especially at AEW, because we both agree the AEW women's division, it seems almost like it's a rudderless ship 98% of the time. I think the only time I really felt like it had any direction was during the When Sheeta had the belt, I felt like it was good. When Britt Baker had the belt, I felt it was good. And that whole build up to Thunder Rosa getting the belt, I felt like that time period, I think it was almost a year and a half, 2 years. I felt like AEW's women's division was probably the strongest then. Since then and before then, it's kind of been garbage. So I think Maria Kanellis can kind of help that out because she's pretty good in women's wrestling for everything that she is and isn't. I think she's pretty good for women's wrestling. Overall, what was your show of the week this week? We had a lot of good wrestling to pick from.
A lot of good wrestling. It's a toss-up between SmackDown and Raw. I agree. I just think that for me, SmackDown delivered a little bit better in regards to you really got some feuds there that are really intriguing. You get the now Liv Morgan situation, what's going on with Ronda Rousey, Drew McIntyre, Killian Cross. You saw Bray Wyatt in the ring as opposed to a tease on Monday Night Raw. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's SmackDown.
Also on SmackDown, you get Rey Mysterio now joining the fold as he gets moved away from Monday Night Raw to stay away from Dominic and the Judgment Day. I thought SmackDown was just a little bit more enjoyable. And I don't know if it's the 2 hours versus 3 hours thing. I just felt like it was a little bit more enjoyable. I thought Raw was absolutely fantastic. But if you do have to pick one show to watch, give 2 hours of your time to SmackDown, and I think you'll be incredibly happy. You want some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
This past weekend, Jon Moxley signed a new contract with AEW. The contract extension is for 5 years, meaning the AEW champion will be with the company through 2027. In an AEW press release announcement of Moxley's re-signing, it stated that he would be working exclusively for AEW and its international partners, namely New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is interesting verbiage because most wrestlers are allowed to take independent bookings as long as it doesn't interfere or conflict with AEW and as long as AEW approves the booking. This makes it seem like Moxley will only wrestle for AEW and for some New Japan specials. The thing that is really interesting is Jon Moxley had a GCW contract. He was the GCW champion. He had a match before this extension was signed. He had a match with Nick Cage, and the stipulation was if Moxley won, Nick Cage retired. Generally, Tony Khan does not allow his wrestlers to get pinned in other promotions, especially if they're champions. Usually, Tony Khan has to have a say in how that match is laid out. In that championship match, Jon Moxley ends up losing the belt. The Firm comes out and beats up Jon Moxley, basically showing the tie to MJF, almost like they're doing MJF's bidding. Nick Cage gets to continue his career as the GCW champion now. CM Punk is more than a wrestler in AEW. Talking about putting a show together and who he could rely on backstage, Tony Khan spoke to Ariel Helwani and explained that there's a lot of people you go with whenever there is stuff. I think there's specific. Even if they're not working in an office job per se, you go like to a Christian or you go to a Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, a Jon Moxley. He would then go on to elaborate as to identify others that he would speak to, highlighting their names who are working in quote-unquote office jobs. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and CM Punk. CM Punk? What? Now it's not clear what capacity CM Punk is working in an office job. It's also curious that Khan would have brought his name up at the same time as the other company EVPs. It's really interesting. I'm not sure what type of contract CM Punk signed with AEW, but that might be part of the reason why we really don't have any answers after the fallout from All Out, as well as during that scrum. He said, I'm trying to run a business here. When we all kind of thought that was kind of a weird line because it's Tony Khan's business. You're not trying to run the business. It seems as though he has a little bit more power than we originally thought. Now, from that same interview, Helwani said that this was one of the most frustrating things he ever had to do because of Tony Khan. In the latest episode of the MMA Hour, Helwani addressed the interview and called it one of the most frustrating interviews of his career. Helwani said, now the Tony Khan interview. Look, whatever I say here is going to piss off AEW supermarks, but I'll just say this. One of the most frustrating and to a degree not so fun interviews in my career. Because as you may have seen, he didn't want to answer anything. Now look, if you're going to come on and promote X, Y, and Z, great. And I'll play the dance with you. And I did at the beginning. but you got to give us something. To not even tell me how you're feeling. I'm not asking for specifics on, all right, fine. I'll ask, is Punk going to wrestle for you? Is he coming back? You don't want to get into it? Fine. But just tell me how you were feeling. Dave Meltzer ended up joining this and basically commented on Hawani's statement and agreed that he's been frustrated covering AEW as of late. Meltzer ended up tweeting, just saw it, and he has a right to be frustrated with the interview. I've been as well covering AEW as of late, which I will talk about at the time, so I can't disagree. I'll talk more, not enough space here. So some fallout here. Tony Khan, usually a very talkative person, in this interview with Ariel Helwani, didn't really want to answer anything. You and I both know, doing interviews, if you don't want to talk to anybody, then why come on and waste our time? Don't waste our time. Either give us something or just go away, because we've got other things we can do, and nobody wants to hear you not say anything. Now, Triple H could possibly be bringing in more people for WWE. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said, Mia Yim, obviously her husband, is in AEW, Keith Lee. Paul Levesque is trying to get everybody back that he had before in NXT that got fired when he didn't have power. And she would fit into that category. I know WWE has an interest in Matt Taven. Obviously, we've seen Matt Taven go to AEW. Vincent was backstage at the show that was at Raw with Dutch. So obviously there's some interest at some level in those two as a tag team in WWE, or maybe for NXT or whatever. Vincent and Dutch were formerly the Righteous in ROH. Yim was released from WWE on November 4th, 2021. WWE also may be after former WWE star Jonah, formerly known as Bronson Reed. He may be eyeing a return to the company at some point in the near future. Jonah was released from WWE on August 6, 2021. He joined Impact Wrestling on November 20th, 2021, and announced his departure from the company on May 6, 2022. Currently, he is in New Japan, where he was defeated by Okada on Monday night in a rematch at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Declaration of Power in the co-main event of the show. So we'll see what happens there. How about a Cody Rhodes update for our final note? Rhodes has been out with a torn pec since June 5th after he finished his match at Hell in a Cell versus Seth Rollins. According to Dave Meltzer, Rhodes is working with DDP and sounds like he's on track for his speculated Royal Rumble return on January 28th. However, if he's ahead of schedule, he may appear at WWE's Day 1 on January 1st. Fingers crossed everything goes according to plan for Rhodes and we get to see him soon, but it sounds like we'll be getting him the beginning of 2023. That's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Anything you've heard, if you agree or disagree, hit us up. Anywhere you find and listen to your favorite podcast, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast and our content will find you. Broadcasting, talking about all things Detroit sports and the world of professional wrestling. So much good stuff. This last quarter of the year from October until December, even though it's considered the season premiere for WWE, is going to be spectacular as we make our way toward Survivor Series, the show in Riyadh, and the Royal Rumble. Is going to be a lot of great things to talk about. AEW, WWE have both raised their game. And just one final opinion. I just kind of had a feeling with Tony Khan appearing on Ariel Helwani. It's just kind of, everybody knows Helwani's in the back pocket of WWE. So there might have been a little bit of contentiousness there because Tony Khan knows that this guy is a real WWE slap. But that's not what we are here. We keep it real every single week on the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. I look forward to breaking it all down next week.